Hello everyone, I am B. Shobharani, Faculty in Biology from Vidyashram PO College. Dear students, in my last session, we learnt about some more concepts of this chapter called reproduction in organisms. We learnt about some more concepts of this chapter called reproduction in organisms. Then what did we learn in the third session of this chapter called reproduction in organisms? We learnt about a very important concept called events in sexual reproduction. So the events in sexually reproducing organism is broadly categorized into three events, namely the pre-fertilization event, fertilization event and post-fertilization event. We learnt about the pre-fertilization event. What is pre-fertilization event? That is the event that takes place prior to the fusion of the gametes was called as pre-fertilization events. And the pre-fertilization event involves two very important processes, namely gametogenesis and gamete transfer. We learnt about gametogenesis. What is gametogenesis? Gametogenesis is nothing but the process of formation of the gametes, that is the male gamete and the female gamete. And we also studied about the types of gametes, namely the homogametes and the heterogametes. We also studied about the sexuality in organisms, that is we learnt about the sexuality in plants, namely unisexual and bisexual, and also we studied about the sexuality in animals, that is unisexual and bisexual. Moving on to a very important concept of this session. So what are we going to learn in today's session, that is session 4 then, which is the continuing concepts of this chapter called reproduction in organisms. In this session, we'll be studying about the gamete transfer, then we'll be studying about the fertilization event, and we'll be studying about the post-fertilization event, which involves the process of formation of zygote and the development of embryo. So moving on to the first very important concept of today's session called gamete transfer. All of us know, due to the process of gametogenesis, the gametes are formed. So after the gametes are formed, the male gamete and the female gamete must be physically brought together to ensure or to facilitate the fusion of the gametes, that is what we call it as fertilization. Then what do you mean by the gamete transfer? So what is the definition for gamete transfer? It is the process of bringing together the male and the female gametes to effect fertilization. That is, how do we define the word called gamete transfer, children, then? It is a process of bringing together the male and the female gametes to effect fertilization. What is fertilization? Fertilization is nothing but the fusion of the male and the female gamete to produce what? Zygote. And this zygote will later develop into a new individual. But as we know, how do these gametes meet each other then? There are certain exceptional cases where, like in bryophytes and pteridophytes, water is the medium through which the transfer of gametes take place, right? But as we know, many of the male gametes fail to reach the female gametes during the transport. To compensate the loss of the male gametes during transport, the number of male gametes produced is in several thousand times than the number of the female gametes. Right. So what is the mode of gamete transfer in case of bryophytes and pteridophytes? Water is the medium, and water is the medium, and through which the transfer of gametes take place. Moving on to the next group of plants, that is gymnosperms. All of us know gymnosperms are non-flowering plants, and as you know, the seeds in gymnosperms are naked seeds. They are not covered by a fruiting structure. They don't have a covering, and in such case the ovules are naked. So in gymnosperms the ovules are naked, and because the ovules are naked, the pollen grains directly fall on the ovule and the process of fertilization will take place. So what is the mode of gamete transfer in case of gymnosperms then? What are gymnosperms? They are a group of plants and they are the non-flowering plants. And what is the nature of this ovule? The ovules are naked. That is, they are not covered by a definite fruiting structure. Because the ovules are naked, the pollen grains directly fall on the ovule and the process of fertilization will take place. Moving on to the next group of plants, that is angiosperms. All of us know majority of the plants that we come across is the angiosperms, and angiosperms are nothing but the flowering plants. And here in case of angiosperms, the pollen grains are transferred to the stigmatic surface of a flower by a very important process called pollination. Then what is pollination then? Pollination is nothing but the transfer of pollen grains from the anther of a flower to the stigma of a same flower or the another flower. Based on that, we differentiate pollination into two types, that is self-pollination and cross-pollination. So pollination is a very important event for the gamete transfer. As you know, the plants are stationary and pollination is made possible by many agents. Who are the agents which bring about the process of pollination? For all of us know that the insects, like it might be the honeybee, butterfly, all these, even the animals and even the wind and even the water are the agents which bring about the process of pollination. So pollination ensures the gamete transfer so that the pollen grains fall on the stigmatic surface. Now what will happen once the pollen grains fall on the stigmatic surface? So once the pollen grain, this is the pollen grain, once it falls on the stigmatic surface, it germinates. What do you mean by pollen germination? It is nothing but the process of formation of a pollen tube. You can see a long tube here, and what is it carrying? It is carrying two male gametes. Right, here you can see the two male gametes. So once the pollen grains fall on the stigmatic surface, it germinates. What is germination? Formation of a pollen tube. And what is carried in this pollen tube? The two male gametes, and they reach the ovule and discharge them near the egg. So the male gametes are discharged near the egg, and later the fusion of the gametes, one of the male gamete with the egg will take place, resulting in the formation of zygote. And as we know, the process of fusion of the gametes is nothing but called as what? Fertilization. So here once the pollen grains are received by the stigmatic surface, it germinates. What do you mean by germination? Process of formation of a pollen tube. What is carried in the pollen tube? Two male gametes, and these male gametes reach where? The ovule, and after reaching the ovule, the male gametes are discharged near the egg and the process of fusion will take place. Right? Now, what is fertilization? Successful transfer and the two gametes coming together for the process of fertilization is very essential for a very vital event in sexual reproduction to take place. That is what we call it as fertilization. So what is fertilization then? Fertilization is nothing but it's a very important vital event in sexual reproduction. Very important event. What is this event all about? It is nothing but the fusion of the male and the female gametes. And this fusion of the male and the female gamete will result in what? Formation of a diploid cell called zygote, which is 2N. It is a single cell but a diploid cell. This process of fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete is also called as syngamy. Syn means what? Fusion. Gamy means what? Gametes. So fusion of gametes is also called as what? Is also called as syngamy. So fertilization, either you can use the word called fertilization or syngamy. This is a very important question which is asked in your PU board question paper. What is fertilization? What are the types of fertilization? All that is asked in this particular concept called fertilization. You may wonder what will happen if fertilization does not take place. If in some organisms or in some members like rotifers, honeybees, and lizards and turkey birds, the female gamete undergoes development to form a new organism without fertilization. Very important concept to be noted. So, and this process, that is the female gamete undergoes development to form a new organism without fertilization, is called parthenogenesis. So this is a very important question which is asked in the exam, children. So what is parthenogenesis? It is the phenomenon. What is that phenomenon all about? The phenomenon that involves, that is the female gamete undergoes what? Development to form a new organism without fertilization. As I said, what will happen if fertilization does not take place? So the female gamete directly develops into a new organism without fertilization. And what do you call that event as? That event is called as what? That event is called as parthenogenesis, right? And this is a very important question which is asked in the exam. What is parthenogenesis? Explain with a suitable example. So what are the examples you are going to give for parthenogenesis? One is either rotifers or honeybees, lizards and turkey birds. So what is parthenogenesis? It is a phenomenon. What is this phenomenon all about? The female gamete undergoes development to form a new organism without fertilization, and you call that phenomenon as what? Parthenogenesis. So if they ask what is parthenogenesis, give a suitable example. This is what you have to write the definition. So what is fertilization? The process of fusion of male and female gametes to form what? Diploid zygote is called fertilization, or it is also called as what? It is also called as syngamy. So this fertilization, very important event called fertilization, is broadly classified into two types. What is the basis for classifying fertilization into two types, namely external fertilization and internal fertilization? Internal fertilization. So what are the two types of fertilization? External fertilization and internal fertilization, based on the mode. Now what is external fertilization and what is internal fertilization? So external, outside. So when the process of fusion of the gametes takes place outside the body of the parent, it is called external. When the process of fusion of gametes, that is fertilization, takes place inside the body of the female, then we use the word called internal. So what is the difference between external fertilization and internal fertilization? External fertilization is the process of fusion of the male and the female gametes takes place outside the body of the parent, maybe in a medium like water, right? But here in case of internal fertilization, the process of fusion of gametes takes place inside the body of the female, right? We'll move on to that in the next slide. Now let us see what is this external fertilization. As I said, fertilization that occurs outside the body of the parents, and that to where? In an external medium such as surrounding water. And such type of external fertilization is commonly seen in fishes and frogs. I think all of us know rainy season is the best season for the frogs to breed. As you know, the female frog goes to the water to lay eggs, and the male frog goes and sheds the sperms on the eggs, and the process of fusion of the gametes takes place in the water. So the medium is water, and the process of fusion of gametes takes place outside the body, and hence you use the word called external fertilization. As I said, internal fertilization, the fusion takes place inside the body of the female. You may wonder, and this is a question which is commonly asked in the examination, which is more advantageous, whether it is external or whether it is internal. So definitely internal fertilization is more advantageous when compared to external fertilization. Why external fertilization is a disadvantage? Why we call it as a major disadvantage? Because the gametes or the zygote that is formed will be vulnerable to predators. So they may be eaten by the predators, or they may be washed away by the water current, or they may be damaged due to the water current. So in order to compensate the loss, they have to produce large number of gametes, because there is no surety for the fusion of the gametes, because most of the gametes are vulnerable to predators, or most of them are washed away by the water current, or maybe they may be subjected to damage. So in order to compensate the loss, as we know, the fishes and the frogs will lay very good number of eggs. That is to compensate this loss that is caused due to the vulnerability or due to the predators. So the major disadvantage is the gametes or the zygote will not be the survival rate will be very less when compared to the internal fertilization. So what is external fertilization? Fertilization that occurs outside the body of the parent, that is in the external medium. So usually what is the medium? It is the surrounding water. And where do you come across such type of external fertilization? Usually you come across in fishes and in case of frogs. So what is the major disadvantage? Here you find that the gametes or the offsprings are vulnerable to predators. So in order to compensate the loss, they have to produce what? Large number of gametes in order to ensure what? In order to ensure fertilization. Right? Hope you have understood what is fertilization and what are the two types of fertilization, and we have discussed about the external fertilization. Moving on to the next very important type of fertilization, that is called internal fertilization. Already I said, when we differentiated the external fertilization from the internal fertilization, the process of fusion of the gametes takes place inside the body of the female. So the process of fertilization, what is fertilization? Fusion of the gametes, the male gamete and the female gamete. And what is the resultant cell that is formed after the fusion? That is the zygote, right? So fertilization that occurs inside the body of the female is called internal fertilization. What are the examples here? I am going to give reptiles, birds and mammals. Like you can give some reptiles, then birds and mammals, right? Now, during this process, very important thing has to happen. That is, the male gametes are released in the close vicinity of the female gametes. Why it is released in the close vicinity means very nearby to the female gametes, so that it can ensure or it can affect fertilization. If it is far away, the chances of fertilization may be less, right? So that is the reason why the gametes, that is the male gamete, is released in the close vicinity of the female gamete to enable fertilization. And as I said, which is more advantageous? Is it external fertilization or internal fertilization? Definitely it is internal fertilization. Why? The process of fertilization takes place inside the body and the development of the zygote takes place inside the body, and the surety of the development of the zygote up to certain stages more in case of internal fertilization than compared to external fertilization. This is a question which is commonly asked in your board exam. What is fertilizer? Write the differences between external fertilization and internal fertilization with suitable examples, or which is more advantageous, whether it is internal fertilization or external fertilization. Justify your answer with a suitable example. So these are the things which is asked in your board exam regarding this concept called fertilization and the two types of fertilization, namely external fertilization and internal fertilization. Now, moving on to the next very important concept, that is the post-fertilization events. So, we have studied in today's session, we studied about the pre-fertilization event, one very important event that is about the gamete transfer. Then we studied about the fertilization and the two types of fertilization, that is external and internal fertilization. Moving on to the next very important concept called post-fertilization event. What do you mean by post? After. Pre means before. Prior to the fusion of the gametes is called pre-fertilization, and after the fusion of the male and the female gametes is called post-fertilization event. Now, what is so very important about this event then? The event of sexual reproduction occur after fertilization. So, it includes what? It includes very important, that is the process of formation of a zygote and the development of an embryo. As I said, zygote is what? Zygote is a diploid cell, right? And this diploid cell will develop into what? Embryo. So what will happen between these two stages? Zygote developing into an embryo, series of mitotic cell division will take place. And what is the significance of this mitotic cell division? More number of cells are produced. So more cells are produced, right? And because there is a formation of more number of cells, it will help in a very important process called cell differentiation. Right. So what are the two very important things that is going to happen after post-fertilization event? There is the formation of a zygote and the development of embryo. And the process of development of embryo is called as embryogenesis. Embryogenesis. Embryo means the developing zygote. Zygote will develop into a developing individual called embryo. Genesis means what? Development, right? Now, moving on to the zygote. As I said, what are the two, that is the post-fertilization event includes what? The formation of zygote and the development of the embryo, zygote. So how do we define this word called zygote? As I said, the zygote is the resultant cell. Resultant cell after fertilization. Resultant cell after fertilization means what? That is, after the fusion of the male gamete with the female gamete, what is formed? Zygote is formed. As I said, this zygote is a diploid but a single cell. This we have to remember, it is a diploid cell but a single cell. And further, this zygote development depends on the type of life cycle of an organism and the environment in which they are surviving. Later, the development of the zygote depends on what? Depends on the type of life cycle of an organ. It might be haplontic, diplontic, right? And the environment in which they are surviving. This is very, very important. Now, in organisms belonging to algae and fungi, as you know, the organisms are subjected to unfavorable climatic conditions. So how do they overcome this unfavorable climatic conditions? In such cases, in such conditions, some algae and fungi, the zygote of these organisms will develop a thick wall. It produces a thick wall around the zygote, and this thick wall is resistant to desiccation and damage. What do you mean by desiccation? Drying up. As I said, when the organisms come across unfavorable climatic condition, it might be a dry condition. So in order to overcome the dry condition, they develop a thick wall around themselves, around the zygote, and this thick wall is resistant, or it protects the zygote from what? From desiccation. What do you mean by desiccation? Drying up. And also from what? From damage. Because it is a very thick wall, it will protect the zygote from the unfavorable climatic conditions, and it avoids what? Damage to the zygote, right? And after that, the zygote will undergo a period of rest before germination. So before it germinates, it undergoes what? A period of rest. And as I said, zygote is very, very, very important. So why it is important? It is a vital link. Why do we call it as a vital link? Because zygote ensures the continuity of the species of the organisms from one generation to the next. So without zygote, there is no continuity of the species. So zygote is a very, very important thing. That is, we call it as a vital link that ensures the continuity of species between organisms of one generation and the next, right? Now, as I said, zygote is the vital link that ensures continuity of species between organisms of one generation and the next. So, one very important thing what we have to remember is every sexually reproducing organism, including man, begins life as what? Single cell. Do you all remember? We all have started our life with a single cell, and then later on, as you know, the single cell you call it as what? Zygote. This is a very important thing you have to remember. That is why I said what? Zygote is the vital link that ensures the continuity of the species between organisms of one generation and the next. So every sexually reproducing organism, including man, begins life with as a single cell, that is zygote. And I told you this zygote will undergo what? A series of mitotic cell division to become a multicellular embryo. That is what the next concept, that is embryogenesis. So as I said, what is embryo? The developing individual that is formed from the zygote. So it refers to the process of development of an embryo from the zygote. So what is embryogenesis? If it is asked in the exam for 1 mark question, or how do you define embryogenesis? It refers to the process of development of an embryo from the zygote. And as I said, during embryogenesis, the zygote undergoes what? Cell division and cell differentiation. As I said, this zygote is a diploid cell but a single cell, and this will develop into what? Into an embryo, right? How? Through mitotic cell division. And This mitotic cell division will help in what? Process of formation of more number of cells. And this more number of cells will help in a very important process called cell differentiation. So this cell differentiation helps in what? Helps in the formation of tissues. As you know, group of cells make a tissue. Group of tissue make a organ. And group of organ make an organ system. And group of organ system make an entire organism. Right? So this whole phenomenon is called as cell differentiation. So after a series of mitotic cell division, more number of cells are formed and those cells will undergo what? Cell differentiation. So what is cell differentiation? That is, cells, more number of cells will group into tissues. So group of cells make a tissue and group of tissues make a organ and group of organs make a organ system and group of organ system will help in forming what? An entire organism. A very, very important concept to be noted during the process of embryogenesis. So during embryogenesis, the zygote will undergo what? Cell division, that is mitosis, and cell differentiation. What is cell differentiation? That is, the more number of cells that are produced due to mitotic cell division will undergo what? Cells group into tissues, tissues into organs, and organs into organ system, and organ system into an entire organism. That is, what is embryogenesis? It refers to the process of development of an embryo from the zygote. So during embryogenesis, what are the two very important things that is going to take place? That is cell division and cell differentiation. And as I said, during cell division the number of cells is increased and in the developed embryo, and the cell differentiation helps in what? To form tissues, tissues into organs, and organ will help in the formation of entire organism, right? So what are the two very important post fertilization event? That is the process of formation of zygote and the development of embryo, that is what we call it as embryogenesis. Moving on to the next concept in this last part of this chapter, that is, we differentiate the animals into oviparous animals and viviparous animals. As you know, there are a set of animals which lay fertilized eggs. So what is the difference between oviparous animals and viviparous animals? Now, the animals which lay fertilized eggs are called oviparous animals. So egg-laying animals are called oviparous animals. Then what do you mean by viviparous animals? Viviparous animals are those animals which give birth to young ones directly, give birth to young ones. Right, here the animals which lay fertilized eggs, they are called as oviparous animals. Like for example, what are the examples you give for oviparous animals? Reptiles and birds. Now very important thing I think you might have noticed, in the eggs of this oviparous animals, the egg is covered by a hard calcareous shell. Right. So based on that we also differentiate them into two types of eggs. One is called cleodoic eggs, the other one is called non-cleodoic eggs. What is the basis for classifying the eggs into two types, cleodoic and non-cleodoic? Whether the egg is covered by a hard calcareous shell. For example, in case of fishes and frogs, we don't come across the shelled. So these are called non-cleodoic eggs. Whereas in case of reptiles and birds, the eggs are covered by calcareous shell. And this calcareous shell is what? It is a means of protection, right? So is laid in where? In a safe place in the environment. So after a period of incubation, the young one is going to hatch out. You can see in the picture here, the young one will be hatching out. You can see how after the egg, that is after the egg undergoes what? Period of incubation, it hatches out and from the egg, and you can see the young one coming out. So that is a very important concept to be noted in oviparous animals. That is, in oviparous animals, egg-laying animals, sometimes the eggs are covered by calcareous shell. So such eggs are called cleodoic eggs. In some cases, The eggs are not covered by calcareous shell. I think you might have come across in the eggs of fishes and frogs, it is covered by a gelatinous substance, sticky like substance for protection. There the shell protects the egg. Here the gelatinous substance protects the eggs. So what are the examples for oviparous animals? You can give an example of reptile and birds. What are the examples for viviparous animals? That is non-cleodoic eggs, that is fishes and frogs. Right. Now moving on to the next, that is viviparous animals. So as I said, oviparous animals are those animals which lay fertilized eggs. So what are viviparous animals? I think you can see in the picture. So the animals giving birth to the young ones. So those animals which give birth to the young ones are called viviparous animals. So most of the majority of the mammals come under this viviparous animals. So what do you mean by oviparous animals and viviparous animals? Oviparous animals are those animals which lay fertilized eggs, and sometimes the eggs may be covered by a hard calcareous shell or may not be covered. So if at all, if the eggs are covered over by a hard calcareous shell, we use the word called cleodoic eggs. If it is not covered by a hard calcareous shell, we use the word called non-cleodoic eggs, right? Then what do you mean by viviparous animals? Viviparous animals are those animals which give birth to young ones. Majority of the mammals are called viviparous animals. Hope you have understood the two very important concepts about oviparous and viviparous animals. Moving on to the last part of this chapter called reproduction in organism, that is the post-fertilization changes. So what do you mean by post-fertilization changes? So after the process of fertilization, what are the changes that is going to take place in a flower? That is called post-fertilization changes in a flower. Here you can see in the diagram, right? So here in flowering plants, the zygote is formed inside the ovule. So the zygote, in most of the flowering plants, you can see that the zygote is formed inside the ovule. And this zygote will later develop into what? Embryo. Already we have studied in the post-fertilization event. What does post-fertilization event involve? Formation of zygote and development of embryo, where we use the word called embryogenesis, right? Then the ovule. This ovule develops into what? Seed. The zygote develops into embryo, the ovule develops into seed, and the ovary develops into fruit. So this is a question which is asked, what is a fruit then? Fruit is nothing but a ripened ovary, right? So ovary develops into fruit, ovule develops into seed, and the zygote develops into embryo. And most of the time you can see the ovary wall that is developed, and this ovary wall develops into what? The pericarp. And this pericarp we also use the word called fruit wall. So what are the post-fertilization changes in flower? In flowering plant, the zygote is formed inside the ovule. This zygote develops into what? Into an embryo. Now this ovule will develop into what? Seed. And this ovary will develop into what? Fruit. And the fruit will have what we call it as the ovary wall, which we use the word called pericarp or the fruit wall. And after the seeds are dispersed, so once they are dispersed through various mode, they start germinating, right? And they germinate only when the conditions are favorable. I think all of you know, during unfavorable climatic conditions, the seeds will not sprout, or they remain dormant. So only when favorable conditions are there, they will germinate and produce what? They produce a new plant, right? So these are the very important things that is going to happen in the post-fertilization event. So what are the very important things? The zygote is formed inside the ovule. The zygote develops into embryo. The ovule develops into seed. The ovary develops into fruit. The ovary wall is nothing but what we call it as fruit wall. Then after the seeds are dispersed from the fruits, they germinate. When do they germinate? Only when there are favorable climatic conditions, and produce what? The new plants. So with this, I have completed this whole chapter 1 of your second PU syllabus, that is reproduction in organisms. Hope you have understood the concepts what we have studied right from session 1 to session 4. So I'll be meeting you all in the coming session with a new chapter. Till then, goodbye. Thank you.